being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
We're behind. They're all fired up. What we got to do? First place, our defense has got to go out there and take the ball. And when we get the ball, we got to have 11 people that's going to do their job and try to score every time you get the football. If we do that, we'll be all right. Do that, we'll be all right.
Happy Monday, everybody. This is the Football Caddell here on the CTS-Sports room. Did we not have a crazy week? Football season has come to the end, but you know, I'm happy Jalen to pull it out and the Eagles fly, but they came up get into it. What a Super Bowl. Shouts out to the students. I'm just so excited about this game. Let's get to the Super Bowl in Glendale, Arizona. Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes Hurts. It was a matchup, and it was just an epic performance. I thought Jalen could have won the MVP if they gave out an award for it to the winning player, but man, kudos to Patrick Mahomes. But Super Bowl 57, the Eagles, I was rolling with Fly Eagles Fly. I heard more Eagles fans than Chiefs Kingdom, but man, the Chiefs won the toss, elected to defer, and the Eagles rolled the ball downfield, going up 7-0. And I was like, oh my gosh, they are rocking and rolling. And the Chiefs came back and was able to tie it up. Many storylines in this game. Mahomes versus Hurts. Howie Roseman versus Brett Veach, Andy Reid, Eric John Gadden, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen. And man, it was an absolute Mahomes, shouts out to Jalen Hurts, man. They were on a roll, and I thought Jalen played. And he had, if I were to tell you, Jalen Hurts will put up over 300 yards passing, 70 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, and you would say that the Eagles lost, you would thought the Eagles would win with Jalen Hurts performing at that elite. Shout out Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. They played an amazing game. I rolled to all the student sections out there. I just had to get it off my chest. I was so excited. But the Super Bowl, I mean, it was just everything. Like, it was a great game, just all across the board. But I do want to just talk about quick starts when it comes to the Super Bowl game. And I would like to say, how how physical. These two teams came out defensively and played at high levels. Steve, the Kansas City Chiefs, Joe Gannon, he played an amazing first half, but they did not make the adjustments. You know, we're going to talk it, bring it back to Alabama, but man, game they were hitting, and everybody going into the game. I'm like, I think the Eagles going to win this game, and I thought they had the game, but I felt like they let the game from them in the second half because a pivotal play. I said Jalen played a great game. It just happened at the wrong time. It was Jalen's fumble that caused the score. I tweeted. I was talking back forward with some of my friends. We were fumble. If they didn't, Jalen did not fumble. If they don't turn the ball over that drive away, they're going to go up 14 points on the Chiefs, and you're just great because they can't stop the run. But shouts out to the Chiefs. They made the play, but Jalen came outside of that fumble. But, man, it just shows you Jalen character that's going to – he's the MVP type caliber. I think he's one of the top 3 quarterbacks. But we know Jalen's going to use this as a learning lesson to overcoming adversity, staying even keel, showing great leadership, to use this as a lesson learned and motivation. That way he can be successful and get the Eagles. Man, physical defense, Jalen versus Mahomes. But I got to shout at Mahomes. I got to talk about Patrick Mahomes. Guy won the two-time Super Bowl MVP. He played an amazing game. He was gimpy and forth. Listen, the Philadelphia Eagles looked like they had their 10 points, you know, at the half, 21 to 10 and 14 at halftime. But the way they came out second half, they made, and that's what I want to talk about. And Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy did adjustment. And I feel like the drop game up. And I don't know what happened to the Eagles' second half defensively. It's like they did not find out how to match them. But I will say it was a very interesting about Jalen versus Mahomes, Mahomes versus Jalen. Talked about the physical defense. I want to say one of my biggest disappointments from the Super RTR to everybody in the student section. Please put your comments in the student section. I see we got everybody. The Eagles' defensive line was a disappointment. I thought that was going to be the game changer. The Eagles, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, all those guys, they didn't get not zero Patrick Mahomes. So on the flip side, I want to shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs. We remember the Kansas City Chiefs in the previous Super Bowl when they played Tampa Bay in that Super Bowl. That Mahomes, he's a magician, but the offense, he was taking too many sacks, being uncomfortable in the pocket. So shouts out to Brett, the front office. Brett Veach is the GM. They wouldn't have got Patrick Mahomes, Humphrey, or Orlando Brown. A lot of those guys, to really help Patrick Mahomes. And that to the offensive line, hey, this is what we do at Football University. We shouts out everything, guys. The offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs, y'all did your thing. So that was one storyline. I talked about the running game. Oh, and the running game. This goes to show you have to have a big time running game. Football at the end of the day is defense and running game. Although you have Patrick Mahomes, you have to be able to run the ball. Jalen Hurts, what he was able to do, 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground. But outside of the only rushing attack for the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, where was Miles Sanders? Where was Kenneth Gainwell? I picked Kenneth Gainwell to kind of be a game changer for the Philadelphia Eagles running. The Kansas City Cheifs front seven shut all of that down. You look at Nick Bolden, Williams up front, Carlos Dunlap. Those guys came to play. Steve Becknold, and to bring it back to Alabama, we saw the big news today where Coach Saban announced, and he has a couple coordinators. He has Kevin Steele, and so I think it's important that we kind of get back to having really good, not only play in-game adjustments, but able to make plays throughout. You can see, look at Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid. It's like they weren't even game planning the first. All their great game plans for the second half versus the Philadelphia Eagles football university. I mean, it was just crazy. So the Eagles defense, you looked at now you look on the flip side, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs running game. I picked them last week to be a game changer in the running game, and you look at him to run, his physical style of running, the type of runner that he is. He's a tone to Alabama. I feel like Alabama, yes, we have running backs, but we need to get back to some points of the game. There's defenses like Isaiah Pacheco. He was a physical runner, and that was rolling. And you can see when they came out of second half, you know, after the Rihanna, people didn't know if Mahomes was going to play the second half because he got injured that last drive. Made the adjustments, and they said, we're going to be physical and we're going to drive it down your throat. And so in game, you got to have a good defense. Steve Spagnuolo stopped basically outside of the Eagles running game and the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. I mean, they shut down the Eagles defense, that vaunted defense that we thought was going to, you know, have all these homes upright and with 0 sacks. So that is so interesting. Now let's get to the student section. I want to shout out everybody in the student section: William Bryant, Linda P, Roll Tide, Nick Saban Jr. We got a comment. Let's see. Eagles defense, Justin Smitty did that part. Listen, we know big game Smitty, Devontae Smith from coming down from. He's a Louisiana big time. What is middle school NFC championship, high school championship. Smith is the big game guy. You look at him and Jalen. I'm telling you, they put on an absolute dropping dimes in this Super Bowl. I mean, the pass to Abel, he had some catches to Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith still had. It just goes to show you.
Hey, how y'all doing? Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. We'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully you can hear me now. If people still watching, we had a little technical difficulties, and Matt,
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
yeah, what kind of 8 mile internet do you have?
I don't know, man. I get no bars. I'm out here with no Wi-Fi hardly.
If somebody can hear, if you can hear us, somebody type in the comment section. You can hear us. Got it. So William Bryant can hear us. So now that William Bryant can hear us, the show can go on now because William Bryant's here. He's part of the Four Horsemen, Matt. This was historic. This was bigger than Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. That you lost internet connection. And I had to come on and save you, Matt. This is what I do.
Got it.
You're just looking at me like, hey, won't you get off the
Man, there's so much going on. I'm trying to make sure I get everything squared away.
Hey Joey, why don't you get off my show and just
No, I need to know where I left off at.
I think you left off at Jalen Hurts is the greatest quarterback ever. And
Man,
when he's gonna eventually win the Super Bowl. Hey,
Okay,
hey, before I go, can I that Lori Caddell? She's a nice looking lady. You know her?
that's my wife. It's my beautiful wife, man.
I knew that. That's the part where you say, yeah, I know her.
I can't see the student section, so you have to put them up on the board for me.
It's on the board.
Oh, I can't see them.
And yes, rise up, Lori. I'm glad you got some taste.
But yeah, so I'll pick back up, man. Appreciate it, Joey. Everybody,
all right.
Joey, applause.
Yeah, man, everybody clap and shake your freaking feet for Joey. That's right. All right, Matt, continue to have a great show.
Appreciate it, man. Sorry about the technical difficulties, man. Everybody. But yeah, Jalen Hurts, like Joey said, Jalen Hurts, man. He put on the clinic. I think he's a $200 million quarterback. If I'm the Eagles, he's going to take care of you in the future. So I don't know where we left off, but I will say we talked about Mahomes, Jalen versus Mahomes, physical defense in the Super Bowl, the running game. Jalen Hurts could have been the MVP. Mahomes was the MVP. We talked about the second half adjustments. We talked about shouting out Smitty. I felt like one big issue watching the Super Bowl in the period is the officiating. What is the catch? What is not a catch? We need some type of consistency regarding NFL catches. I mean, I feel like Smitty made enough plays to that was the catch. But if you're going to make that call, make it be consistent. If we can get consistency in calls, that will help out. So I want to talk about Patrick Mahomes. I got to give him his flowers. Patrick Mahomes won another Super Bowl, and he done it without Tyreek Hill. I see Nick Saban Jr. says, can anybody stop Travis Kelce? I mean, I think the Eagles tried to, but, man, it was just they couldn't. But Mahomes, he won a Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. He was able to do it with, I think, 24 new players on their roster. So they had a really young team. Watson at tight end, receiver, Sky Moore at receiver, Pacheco, a lot of late to mid-round guys that they just, really invested in and developed and had an eye for talent. So kudos to that front office. But, man, the Kansas City Chiefs, shouts out to Mahomes for, just showing how great he is. I mean, the guy was out there one leg making sidearm throws, running. He was not going to come out that game. So for him to show the will to win his team to the Super Bowl win, I mean, kudos to Patrick, MVP, two-time Lombardi Trophy winner, Patrick Mahomes. So the Chiefs won, and everything. But I wanted to flip it to the other side. I kind of got into it earlier, like, where do the Eagles go from here? I mentioned, I don't know, it was before I had technical difficulties, but we know what type of person Jalen Hurts is. He likes to overcome adversity. He's really diligent. He has a lot of character, integrity, perseverance. He's going to use this as a lesson, and I feel like we know what Jalen Hurts is going to do. Philadelphia Eagles as an organization, I think they got some holes to fill defensively. I feel like the O-line is fine, but I think you look at running back, in the biggest stage, their running backs did not come through, especially with that vaunted offensive line. Miles Sanders was nowhere to be found. Kenneth Gainwell was nowhere to be found. Boston Scott had a run in here too, but for the most part, outside of Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles did not have a running attack. And so you look at the Eagles, I think they need to find some type of running backs, whether it's, you look at a Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley. It's going to be a lot of movement in the free agent market. You have the big time draft. They look at a Gibbs or Bijan Robinson. I think the Eagles have the number 10 pick and the number 30th pick in the draft, or the 31st, one of them. I think in the number 10, they could definitely, somebody mentioned Nick Saban Jr., mentioned Travis Kelce. I know one way the Eagles possibly can stop Travis Kelce is drafting Brian Branch at number 10. That can help your defense a lot, especially if you're going to play man. He's his positional value is through the roof. He can play so many positions: star, money, corner, safety, if need be. He's that effective. So I think the Eagles, they need to fill some needs on the defensive secondary. I mentioned Brian Branch, but also the linebacker core. I feel like you look at the Kansas City Chiefs linebackers, Nick Bolton, Willie Gay, their scheme, they were physical. They were laying that hat. Philadelphia Eagles, that's kind of one of their weakest part of their defense. And you look at their secondary. I think their secondary is pretty strong. Gardner Johnson, Slade, but I think you're relying on them to make too many plays, especially when you're front seven. Hassan Reddick, Brandon Graham, they were a no-show. So I think they need to address that linebacker core. So, but I think the Eagles will kind of be one of those top teams next year. I think this is just going to be motivation for Jay himself. He's always even cool. You remember after he fumbled, we knew that was just going to motivate him to come back and make a play. And we are, we know what to expect for Jalen. So kudos to Jalen. We talked about the running game. We talked about defense. We talked about Patrick Mahomes. Mr. Mahomes. We talked about the front office of Brett Veach versus Howie Roseman. I talked about the needs that I think the Eagles need to do, but I do want to talk about the emotional part of football. You have ebbs and flows, and if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they were at one point Jalen comes back, gets the 2-point conversion, is tied up. They were able to stay consistent. So some of the lessons that football teaches you is you got to stay even keel. You got to stay cool, calm, and collect. And you got to be prepared. I feel like Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid were the better prepared team, and they know how to make in-game adjustments, play calls. When you look at the matchup, and Eric Bieniemy had a drive in the second half where he was just matching up Juju Smith-Schuster. He found the matchup. He was able to play on it. They did their film study. So that just shows you who all had a great plan for their coaching staff. And so I got to give shouts out to the Eric Bieniemy. I know I sound like a broken record, but talking about the emotions going up into the game, shouts out to the Kansas City Chiefs. They felt disrespected leading up to this game. Everybody was picking the Eagles. I was picking the Eagles here at Football University. But I thought they had the advantage up front, offensive line, defensive line, running game. I thought they had the better roster. But man, it comes and we know at Alabama, like we had all this talent this past year, but we weren't able to execute. So it got to come down to great coaching, and coaches that know how to make adjustments and coaches that have great preparation. I feel like that's why I'm so high on Eric Bieniemy. That's why I think he needs to be head coach in the NFL. I don't know why everybody keeps passing on, but he would be number one uno on my list if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not even looking at Shane Steichen or John Gannon, especially after this, what they put on film in the second half of the Super Bowl, especially Gannon. I'm sorry, I'm going with the guy who outplayed you, outcoached you, and Eric Bieniemy, and won the Super Bowl. So, and he just looks like he has leadership. So, he knows, he talks like a head coach. I mean, a head coach. So, let's get to the student section before I get to my next topic. Spencer says, I feel sorry for Jalen. Have flashbacks for the Bama Ohio State game. Yeah, I mean, Jalen, he put on the clinic, man. I feel like Jalen played about as perfect of a game as you could play. I mean, Jalen just proved his worth for the Philadelphia Eagles organization. What type of player, what type of quarterback. Like I said, I think he's easily a top 3, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I mean, this guy's having a rise. His own, second, third year in the NFL. He took him to the Super Bowl, NFC champion last year. We know what type of person Jalen is. He has that toughness, that grit like a Mahomes, and continue to improve. He's going to improve even more his passing game, improving where they can, be even, he can be even a more effective quarterback. That way he can finally get over hump and win a Super Bowl and host that Lombardi next year. So speaking of next year, I want to kind of get who do you think is going to be in the Super Bowl next year? I mean, what is this going to do? What is it going to look like? I mean, you got to say, obviously, the Kansas City Chiefs out the AFC. I mean, you look at the Bengals, the Bills. Give you a sneaky team. The Miami Dolphins, I think if they get the running game squared away, offensive line squared away, defense, they got Vic Fangio, which I think is a great hire. And I think I won't be surprised if you look at Tua. Tua can have a Jalen type year even next year for the Miami Dolphins, and they could be in the Super Bowl with Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill, they can make some noise. Now let's get to the student section. Stephen Hicks says Jalen was running like a linebacker. Nick Saban Jr. says Eric Bieniemy needs to become to college for 1 year as an OC and light it up, and then we'll be calling him as OC if he can put up ridiculous numbers. To your point, Nick Saban Jr. about Eric Bieniemy, yeah, I think he should already be a head coach. He's more than well deserved to be an NFL head coach. Listen, Lori Caddell, I know you're a Rise Up Falcons fan. Y'all should have hired Eric Bieniemy a couple of years ago. I would have been hired Eric Bieniemy. You look at what the impact he has on Patrick Mahomes, that offense, calling plays, making adjustments, playing matchups, having game plans, have multiple game plans, knowing the rhythm of the game, the flow of the game. Listen, I think the Falcons, man, they could have had a Jalen Hurts, a good head coach. There's so many decisions that I think the Falcons have, hurt themselves, so to speak. But we're going to try to be positive. Falcons fans, tell Arthur Blank he needs to hire me as his GM, and I can get y'all to the Super Bowl pretty quickly. That's what I do at Football University. So rise up, all the Falcons fans. But so let's get to the next topic. Let's look at the student section. Never give up. We need like 1 or 2 us to hang in there with the team. Listen, one thing about Falcons fans, they are true fans, man. ATL, all Falcons fans in ATL, Georgia. But we talked about Jalen Hurts. We talked about the perseverance. I wanted to bring this up. Oh, my goodness. So at the end of the game, they had the controversial play where was it a holding, a controversial PI call? It is what it is. They, at that moment, you probably shouldn't do it, but it is what it is. Playing DB, all DBs do it. But at the same time, after that play, the Philadelphia Eagles, their approach was to let the Kansas City Chiefs score. And I thought that was not a good approach. I felt like instead of them trying to let them score quickly, that way you can save time on the other end, you should have been aggressive and tried to tackle this guy. Keep him in bounds or force him out of bounds. Hey, you never know. If you play aggressive, you might get a fumble. You might get a strip sack or whatever. You still got to be aggressive. And kudos to the Kansas City Chiefs talking about football awareness, IQ, having a great understanding of football. You've got to give it to the Kansas City Chiefs. And it goes back to coaching. Being able to handle situational football and situational times. Isaiah McKinney on the other end saw that they were going to let him score in the end zone. He did not score a touchdown. He slides at the 1. And he runs the clock, and that way they can settle for a field goal. I thought that was just smart IQ, intelligent, high football IQ. And that's what Alabama football's got to get back to, having high quality coaching, situational coaching, as well as high football IQ situational players. That way we can win games and win championships. So that's how we bring it back to Alabama. So they should have been a little bit more aggressive towards the end. And another lesson we learned in the Super Bowl. Listen, Coach Saban will always say this, you want to make the plays each play, and don't put the game in the official. Eagles, they had a chance to put the game away. I think if they go up by 2 touchdowns in the second quarter, in the game. But unfortunately, they had the turnover. They were, they let Kansas City come back being up 10 points. I think they should have, put the game away and don't put the game in the official's hands, because you see, if you put it in the official hands, it might go your way. So young there, I think we need to be, if you're going to coach, listen, try to put that way you don't have to leave it in the. So that was one point I wanted to talk about here at Football University. Let's get to the student section. Spencer says, I don't think Kansas City will make it next year. A lot of weaknesses. Listen, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that, because, listen, I said last year, the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill. It's no, their draft picks weren't that great or whatnot, but kudos to Patrick Mahomes. That's all. If you got Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Steve Spagnuolo, they, like I said earlier, they felt disrespected going in this Super Bowl. Everybody was picking the Eagles. I was picking the Eagles, but it is what it is. But I want to shout out the Eagles and shout out to Alabama football. Alabama had 4 players for the Eagles fly. Landon Dickerson, Devontae Smith, Josh Jobe, and of course Jalen Hurts. It just goes to show you, if you're an NFL GM, hey, get Bama guys or just get more SEC guys. I think the SEC was the only conference that had the most players from a conference from both teams. I mean, you look at Carlos Dunlap, Kadarius Toney, Hurts, Devontae Smith, Slay, Fletcher Cox, Mississippi State, Chris Jones, Mississippi State, a lot of SEC guys. So shouts out to the SEC. That's what we do. And shouts out to the Eagles for being built by Bama. I just had to throw that plug in there. That's what we do at Football University. Hit the like, subscribe button. Get in the student section. Let's see. Spencer says, look how many times the ref gave the Eagles extra time off the clock, ran out many times. I mean, like your point, Spencer, I think the officiating, yes, some up and down calls, but I think there needs to be some type of consistency across the board. What is a catch? What is the PI? Call it consistent throughout the game. So that's what I think this should be. Definitely consistency. Let's see. Rise up. We got a lot of Falcons, man. Boo Falcons. Oh, man. I don't know. Falcons fans living in the South, that is a tough one for fans. But shouts out to the Falcons fans. I know my wife, she loves the Falcons. So rise up. Happy Valentine's Day, babe. So let's get to my next topic. I talked about the great line. Oh, next topic. Since I was talking about Kadarius Toney, listen, special teams, that was the big factor. The big punt return Kadarius Toney had in that game. I mean, the special teams coordinator, listen, they put on the clinic. Like the way they had that set up, I broke down film. They doubled the gunners, and then they sent Kadarius Toney. Brett Veach was able to get Kadarius Toney during the season from the New York Giants. I mean, what in a mid-season acquisition that was. So, but special teams was the difference. I mean, I saw the Eagles punt twice, and I didn't even know who the Eagles punter was this year because I'm so used to them scoring touchdowns and not using the punter. But listen, Kansas City had the special teams advantage. They made the plays in the Super Bowl. So shouts out to the Kadarius Toney, the Kansas City Chiefs. They made the special teams plays. And another thing I want to say, NFL, Roger Goodell, you got this big matchup. Can we not get better grass? I mean, there was like a slip and slide show out there, Super Bowl 57. I mean, guys were changing cleats, not getting footing, slipping and sliding on the paint. And then the NFL's like, oh, we've been growing this grass for 2 years, and this is the product you come up with. And then they're like, oh, this is a special Tahoma type of grass, and this grass is not good. Just keep it simple. All the side horticulture people out there, just get Kentucky bluegrass. Just simple. It's nothing too serious. Like, let's not try to reinvent the wheel. That addition type of grass y'all had was not good. It reminded me of playing in the Iron Bowl on the Auburn Iron Bowl. Derrick Henry scores. There's a lot of slipping and falling. You know, it's just kind of crazy. So NFL, get your your field turn safety. We want to take care of the players, right? You're harping on the type of grass that you had last Sunday for Super Bowl 57. That was not a good look. Did not produce a great product on the field. So I had to get that in. We talked about the officiating. We talked about Alabama guys. We talked about the draft. Listen, I think, you know, we're transitioning to the offseason. You know, now the Super Bowl talk is going to kind of end, and you know, now right after the Super Bowl, it's going to be interesting. You know, me personally, you're going to start hearing this quarterback buzz, or oh, Bryce Young's too small, or he's too skinny. Da 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 da. I'm not falling for the okie doke. I'm sorry. I don't care what you all say. Bryce is no other quarterback in this draft that I'm putting over Bryce Young. I just do not see it. Bryce, you look at a Patrick Mahomes, you look at a Jalen Hurts, boys, but the magician it factor Bryce Young has with the Patrick Mahomes and kind of a Drew Brees, Bryce Young is that guy. So when you start hearing all this AR-15, Will Levis, CJ Stroud talk, I mean, you look at what Bryce had to do. CJ Stroud had a top 5 receiver, Marvin Harrison, this past year. The past 2 years, Bryce Young had no top 5 receiver this past year. He had to do more in order for Alabama to be successful, on top of not having the best play calling, then getting injured. Bryce Young, the way he plays, and I know a lot of people are gonna say, "Oh, you look at Tua, da 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 da." Tua, he's smaller quarterbacks can be injury prone. Tua was already injury prone. I don't think, regardless of the size, Tua was just an injury prone quarterback. You know, throughout his college career, whether it's holding on to the ball, you know, not getting rid of the ball, you know, taking sacks, getting injured. Whereas Bryce, if the pocket breaks down, Bryce has so much poise and coolness, and he doesn't panic when he gets pressured. He kind of really cerebral, sees everything, kind of like a Patrick Mahomes. The way he has poise in the pocket. So I had to bring that up on Football University and say, listen, don't fall for that propaganda that Bryce Young is not the top quarterback in the draft. He should fall. There should be other guys drafted ahead of him. Like, do not listen to that noise that they're talking. So we've covered so many topics tonight. So before I get to the next topic, let's get to the student section. We got a lot of Roll Tides. William Bryant, Roll Tide, Rise Up, Spencer, Lori Caddell, Tracy McDuffie, Stephen Hicks, William Bryant, Nick Saban Jr. Nick Saban Jr., when will they give Eric Bieniemy a chance? Listen, if I'm the Cardinals, if I'm the Indianapolis, if I'm the owner or the GM, I mean, you can go with Shane Steichen maybe, but if I can get Eric Bieniemy and then I can draft like a Bryce Young or possibly a CJ Stroud, I can set myself offensively to kind of how I want to be effective in that division, in the AFC. You're making a lot of noise, but, I think Bryce Young, with his talent, a lot of people are going to say the Chicago Bears, should they keep Justin Fields or should they draft Bryce Young? I think they probably trade away, but, hearing some of the Chicago Bears faithful, a lot of them are looking at it, man, what we could do with Bryce Young, but I think they stick with Justin Fields. I think the Chicago Bears, if I'm putting on my GM hat, that's what I do here at Football University. I just give Justin Fields weapons. Maybe I trade down. Maybe it's an Indianapolis Colts that wants to come up from 4 and jump the Texans and get that number 1 pick. Or maybe D'Amico is like, listen, I want Bryce Young. He's hearing rumors that teams are jumping up to try to get Bryce. Maybe, I try to jump in that first round, from number 2 and get to that first pick. But like I said, I think this draft starts and ends with Bryce Young. I think he is the pendulum of what this draft is. He's the main attraction of this draft when it comes to quarterback. We know it's a quarterback-driven league, and I think Bryce Young is number 1, but it's some other talented quarterbacks. CJ Stroud, I think, will probably be number 2 on my board. CJ Stroud, Will Levis. I see where I'm not gonna say I'm not a big Will Levis fan, but I think people see the potential. He's gonna get a lot of comparisons to Josh Allen, having upside and 6'5", 6'6". But when I watch Will Levis, he really didn't impress me. Lori Caddell says, Tua needs to drink some milk and retire. I love him, but now let's talk about it. We talk about Jalen. You can't talk about Jalen and not talk about Tua. I mean, Tua, the news broke Tua was at the Super Bowl and he was doing the interview circuit, Radio Row, and they asked him, what are you doing? Tua mentioned that he's taking judo. And he's going to work on falling, trying to help be preventative. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on Tua? Like I said, I think Tua could have a Jalen-type jump next year with the Philadelphia Eagles, like Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase did, Tua, Smitty did this year going to Super Bowl. And maybe, Tua and Waddle could do it this year. So, what a fun comment. Nick Saban Jr., he said he needs some Nick. Stephen Hicks says, y'all, Tua needs to retire before he needs a bib. Wow. I mean, I think, Tua's got the family, he's got to start thinking about himself long term, and he's got to be able to not get injured, man. He's had for so long, even when he was at Bama, I think that was his biggest issue, not being able to stay healthy. So if he can stay healthy, Tua could make this jump. That's what I'm saying. So Tua, I'm pulling for you, big dog, but y'all got to get the offensive line. You got to stay healthy, man, because when you're healthy, the Miami Dolphins are so much more efficient and their winning percentages skyrocket. So got to get a running game as well. Let's go to 60 says, man, was the Eagles O-line balling yesterday? I mean, I agree. I just thought the Eagles offensive line, shouts out to Landon Dickerson, Mailata, Lane Johnson, Kelsey at center. I mean, those guys were just road grazing, but they were so effective with Jalen, but Jalen did not get any help from his running backs. I feel like Miles Sanders let him down. Gainwell, no running production outside of the quarterback position for the Philadelphia Eagles. But I mean, I don't know. I think the Eagles need to address. You look at a Jahmyr Gibbs, that can maybe do something with the Philadelphia Eagles at that 31st pick. So that's what we do here at Football University. We talk about that. Good question. Tracy McDuffie said, who's getting hired and who's getting fired because of the Super Bowl? Me personally, if I'm getting rid of somebody, if I'm the Eagles, who am I getting rid of? I'm keeping Shane Steichen. I'm listening like Shane. He could be my OC. I wouldn't want him to leave. I don't think he should be the head coach. Me personally, I think the coach should be hiring Eric Bieniemy. I'm sorry. He's numero uno for me. This guy's 2-time Super Bowl coordinator. If it's no other coordinator that has that on their resume, I don't understand why he should be hired. John Gannon, the Eagles defensive coordinator, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm bringing him in for an interview after the dud he laid in the second half. I'm like, no, I'm good. Eric Bieniemy, on the other hand, I'm dialing him up. I'm like, hey, maybe you don't fly back to Kansas City. Maybe you come hang out, enjoy Phoenix. Let me show you around. We'll offer you this and that. Let me see what your vision is for my organization. That's all it is. So, great question by Tracy McDuffie. Spencer said, I was cousin to the top of my lungs, snap the ball or call timeout the whole game. I think the end of the game, I don't think you should let them try to win. You should have been aggressive towards the end because the Chiefs was like, oh, you're not going to tackle me? I'm going to slide at the one and run the clock out. So situational football, in-game situational football goes a long way. Great comments. Nick Saban Jr.'s great point. He said, Jalen Hurts' performance last night is why I like to see Brian Johnson as the OC for Bama. I thought Brian Johnson, he's the quarterback's coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. He did a really good job in the development of Jalen Hurts, really working on some of his talent from the coaching staff. I know Jalen did a lot of work off the field on his own time, but working with Devontae, working with A.J. Brown, and I think he's working with Tom Brady's quarterback's coach. So you can really kind of see some of the similarities in his quicker release, putting the balls there. But to your point, yeah, Nick Saban, I do think Coach Saban got it right with Tommy Rees. I think he's a guy who's creative, who can out-scheme. He likes to run the ball. He's an effective in-game play caller. He runs out, out-scheme guys, work on tendencies, being able to go against matchups. So, great comments in the student section. Shouts out to the student section. Let's get back. Y'all are on tour in here. This is so funny. But y'all said first Tua need to drink some milk. Now Spencer says, I love Tua, Lord, but he needs to put some lime in the coconut and drink it all up. Oh my gosh. Y'all are so funny. Nick Saban Jr. said, who told Anthony Richardson he should enter the draft? I mean, his tape is not that bad. I mean, I think he's a good prospect. You look at a team like the Baltimore Ravens, probably like at 17, 15, lower teams. You look at the Jets, maybe I think he's going to have some value. I think he'd easily slide up into the first round. It's a quarterbacks driven league. When Bryce goes off, CJ Stroud's going to come off. Then it's going to be a race for Will Levis, AR-15, and I forgot who's the kind of the fifth quarterback. I got 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, but maybe 4 to 5. But AR-15 maybe could be the I think he's got a lot of upside. I thought he could have used another year in college, kind of establish himself, get better at a few things. I haven't studied enough games for him, but I still think he should have came back 1 year. But kudos to the kid. I think some teams, their quarterback. It's like I said earlier, it's a quarterback-driven league. They're quarterback hungry. He's going to find a way, I believe, to slide in the first round. I think somebody's going to use him and try to run, looking at Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, the RPO, run pass option. He got to have some type of system for him to be successful in the NFL. So great points, student section. So let's get to my, we talked about the Super Bowl. I thought we talked about the draft. We talked about everything, in-game situations, the ups and downs, special teams, the coaching, football lessons, how Jalen is going to, be his best. He's going to use this as a lesson to be better, to be the best player he can. I thought the Chiefs came out relaxed. I thought the Chiefs felt disrespected, and they proved it to them in some of their post-game interviews. Kelsey, I got to give shouts out to – I told you, Jalen Hurts put on the clinic. I thought the offense did enough to win. Outside of them not having enough running attack from their running backs, the offensive line was so effective. I just wish Miles Sanders, Gainwell, a Boston Scott would have stepped up. But, hey, Eagles, maybe you look at a Jahmyr Gibbs to go with that offensive attack. You can run a little bit more outside zone. Maybe some counters inside zone with that offensive line. Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't need much. He just needs a little crease, and he's whoop, whoop, he's out of there. But I think that could be I think that could be interesting. Steve Hicks said, man, y'all are just roasting in the comments, man, but this is so funny. Steve Hicks says, until he gets hit in the head many more times, he will start sounding like Biden struggling to read a prompt. Man, Stephen Hicks roasted. Bringing out all the entertainment tonight. Oh my gosh! But we let's hope Tua does not get hit in the head anymore. Let's hope that we're going to be positive here. Let's hope that he, takes his judo lessons, works on. Takes a set, and he finally. This is the year Tua puts it all together. Drinks milk, potatoes, weight room, stays physical. Let's hope this is the year Tua puts it all together and he makes the Super Bowl run like Jalen did. And maybe we can have a Tua versus Jalen Super Bowl. How crazy would that be? Wow, Tua versus Jalen, that would be an interesting game. So, man, that it would be so interesting. So, let's see. What else do I have? I think. So that is about it. We're going to wrap it up. Meet us next week, next Monday. We'll be mainly talking about who I think my top 5, receivers, quarterbacks, teams needs. We kind of delve into it some now, but we're going to get into off-season, all the exciting news, free agency, quarterback, what's Aaron Rodgers going to do. Offensive moves and really getting some spring ball, talk about Alabama football. So I do want to shout out to James Knox says Philly is the new North Alabama if Gibbs go there. Listen, I think Philly could get Brian Branch at 10 and Jahmyr Gibbs at 30 or 31, and then get like a really good linebacker, 2 really good middle linebackers. You got a Nakobe Dean, but I think you need a physical presence, kind of some bigger guys that can really go lay that hat to really take the next step in that defense room. So I do want to promote the Jalen Hurts highlight video on the CTS-Sports Room YouTube channel. Just giving Jalen Hurts his kudos. Shouts out Mahomes, but, man, shouts out to Jalen Hurts. His family, Mr. and Mrs. Hurts, they raised such a great kid, but Jalen just put it all together and put on the absolute clinic in the Super Bowl. Shouts out to Patrick Mahomes. shouts out to the student section. I mean, y'all have been superb or super in the comments in the student section. And this has been another edition of Football University with Caddell. Again, forgive me for the technical issues, but we're glad to steady the ship and get it rocking and rolling. So see you next weekend, same time, same place here at